Good morning. This is Mike Conklin, Chairman and CEO of Sentinels of Freedom Scholarship Foundation. This is our podcast series called Veterans Never Stop Serving. With over 700 of the veterans that we have helped across the nation, we thought it'd be nice to go back and talk to them about their success, what they've been doing, where they were, where they are now today, and where they're going. These stories have always been very inspiring to me personally and to our investors and everybody else that hears about our program. So today we have Chief Warrant Officer Mike Gonzalez, United States Army, down in Texas area, and has been pushing hard onto the objective of transition and career, a good family man, a Christian, a believer. And Mike, just great to see you on the video here, and haven't talked to you in a while, but I understand you're doing very well. So give us a little background on, you were in the Army for quite a few years, were injured, and came back to Texas, and kind of give us a little background on how things are going today.
Well, thank you, first of all, to have me here, Mike, on this podcast. What a honorable system that you have in place here for your organization. I think stories tell the world as to, whether you're doing well or you're not, but it depicts, in this case, for the Sentinels of Freedom, what you guys have instilled in us service members, and to give back and to tell our stories to the world, right? And so on behalf of my family and I, thank you for having me here on this podcast. I joined the military in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I was just a kid out of San Antonio, Texas, the inner city, the body of the hood. I didn't have it so well. My dad was in prison all my life. My mom raised 8 children on her own, and I needed a way out. And that way out was the U.S. Army. So I joined in 1992. I was an infantryman. I didn't know any better. That was the only position that was allocated to me. Mike, you're going to be an infantryman. I said, I'll take it. Little did I know that infantry would be the individual who's in the front lines, who's training day and night, who's in the mountains and the waters and the sands, and just really preparing himself or herself to go into places and defend our country. And so I did that for quite some time. But if you fast forward to 2001, I was sitting in my living room in the morning after physical fitness training, which we did every day, Monday through Friday. And I saw that the towers were attacked. Now, keep in mind, I came into the military in 1992. So here we are now in 2001, thinking that I would never go to war,
right,
thinking that this would never happen. And in many cases thinking, what am I training for? The real deal will never arrive. What 2001 would come to change the lives of the American people, our armed forces, and lo and behold, we began to deploy vigorously to Iraq, Afghanistan, in defense of our country in the global war on terrorism. And so through that, I was able to serve our country for 22 years. I started off as a private, PV1, and worked my way up to a sergeant first class, E7. And ultimately, I went over to what I call the dark side of the military, and I would become a warrant officer and specializing in the deployment of forces.
right. So the dark side, as you call it, is when you go from enlisted to an officer. The enlisted guys say, "Oh, you went to the dark side." It's nothing bad.
Correct.
It just means you're moving into a different situation. And some of the guys in the enlisted, kind of joke around and rip you a little bit on that. But it's a big step to get the chief warrant officer.
Well, that in itself was a daunting. Everything I've ever done in my life, Mike, has been a daunting task, right? And so I tell people today, what are you willing to go through? What sacrifice are you willing to go through to achieve your goals, your dreams, that prize, that golden pot at the end of the rainbow? And so for myself, going into the warrant officer side of the house, I had to fight for it. It wasn't given to me. I had to earn it. And so I would become a warrant officer, and we joke around and we say the dark side, and you're correct, Mike. It's just a thing that we say in the military where I left the enlisted side. By the way, I had a remarkable enlistment career. However, joining the warrant officer side was definitely a long life dream in which I accomplished, and I was able to retire, with CW3 on my shoulders, and to leave the military knowing that I gave it everything I had with what they gave me. And so that's a testament in itself for the people who were with me, my soldiers, my commanders, my peers, those who guided me through the process of my career, whether in good times and in bad times. And so I'm honored to say today that I am a proud member of the United States Army, and given that opportunity to serve then and to continue to serve today in many capacities.
Right. Well, you also, you've had over 20 operations after your, at the end of your service. That was a huge kick in the face, so to speak, and you weathered that. You had some ups and downs, but you persevered, and on to doing good things in your community. And I don't even have to ask you. I know you're still volunteering in your community and your church, and helping others less fortunate, and also mentoring. And I think that's a huge part of who you are, your character. I don't think you will ever have that not be a part of your life. And just like you took care of your own soldiers, a lot of people would say, boy, after taking a hit like you did and everything else, why would you want to do anything for anybody else? Just, you've done enough. But you continue to work in your community, helping others. And that's why we came up with that slogan, Veterans Never Stop Serving. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing today, a little bit about your career, where you're working, and then a little bit, I'd really like to hear a little bit more about what you're doing in your community.
Sure. Well, I have to kind of set the stage for what you're asking me, Mike. And, as I transitioned out of the military, as I mentioned before, I went to Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff like that. I came back with what we call post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Now, I didn't know that I was going through that, or that it was called PTSD with the nightmares that I had, with the out of control alcoholism, with being homeless. I came back from the war a changed man on the negative side. Now, talking about the dark side, that was the dark side, right? Because I was facing issues, depression, anxiety, that really I would come to tell people that I took my family on this horrendous roller coaster hell ride. I was lost, Mike. I was sleeping in my truck. Things weren't right. I was down and out, and I was contemplating all kinds of stuff, right, to do with my life, so that I wouldn't go any further. And so in saying that, ultimately, my wife, who was spiritually intact with God, would continue to pray for me. She would pray for me, and she wouldn't give up on me. She would fight for me, in a sense. And so ultimately, I would come to realize that I needed something greater in myself to come out of the pits of darkness, of this PTSD trauma that I was facing because of war. And little by little, it didn't happen overnight. Little by little, the military gave me the greatest physicians. They gave me the greatest commanders. They gave me the greatest counselors. Along with that, my family, and then ultimately the spirituality that I needed in my life, that foundation, would help me to overcome the fears, the trauma that I was facing, and to be that man that I was called to be. To be what? To continue to serve people, to continue to serve communities, to continue to give back to the veteran community, those veterans who are suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder today. There's a stigma, or there's this statistic that says 22 veterans a day take their lives. I've seen that. I've had friends. I have clients who have taken their lives. 5.2 million Americans will suffer with PTSD in a given year. 90% of the American population will have some type of trauma in their lifetime, affecting them with anxiety, PTSD, and then, suicidal tendencies. And so because of my healing process, because of what I've went through, I've become stronger. I've become an advocate for PTSD, and I continue to serve people on a daily basis. I mean, people will tell me all the time, Mike, I'm going through something with PTSD. Can you help me? And so I developed, Mike, what I call the 4 Gs for Mike Gonzalez, the 4 Gs. Number one, you got to get up, right? You don't stay down. You got to get up, and we'll help you get up. Number two, you got to get going. Stop looking back. You're not going that way. You got to be focused. You got to look to what's ahead, and you got to get moving. And number three, you got to believe, but you got to believe in something greater than yourself. You got to set the tone. You got to have the foundation, something strong that'll get you going in times of great need. And number four, which is a very good one, is you got to have humor. In life, people forget to laugh. They forget to smile. They forget to take their wives out to eat. They forget to throw the football with their kids. They forget to entertain themselves in a positive way. And so they get bogged down with nothing but disgruntledness. And so I have been an advocate for those who are suffering with PTSD. I was part of the Wolf Foundation for PTSD, which is a great, amazing organization. And I was fortunate to be the outreach director, and then I was promoted to the South Texas regional director, and that in itself was phenomenal in servicing veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, which I am very proud of, Mike.
Yeah, that's an amazing. I mean, just look at the journey you've been on. Just incredible. I was just thinking as you're talking about this, I wonder what the correlation is population wise. If you were to go back to the 40s after World War II, 12 million service members came home, and nobody knew what PTS was. They just would call it shell shock or something like this, or, oh, that guy's got a problem with alcohol or this, that, or the other. I wonder what the numbers were. And after the Korean War, and after the Vietnam War, after the first Gulf War, whether we've correlated those numbers to see if there's an actual per capita increase, or is it just because the public is more aware of the symptoms and the causes, and we have better ways to treat? I don't know. It's an interesting. That would be an interesting thing to find out. But the bottom line is that with the myriad of support programs out there for veterans, if a veteran cannot find help in any geographic area in this country, it's because they aren't looking hard enough, or they're in denial, or they're in avoidance. And of course, now the Army has these transition programs for when you start to get out. 180 days before you get out, they start working with you. Where are you going? What are you going to do? What school are you going to go to? Are you going to be looking for a job? All that stuff, which is totally different than when you first went in. It was, you're getting out. Hey, here's your paper. See you later. Have a good life. Now it's totally different. So the resources have dramatically increased since, I first got involved in this probably in 1997. We started Sentinels of Freedom as an honoring program to honor high school students going into the military. We still do that today. We made them a promise in our little town that we said, we know who you are. We respect you for making this highest level of decision that a high school senior can make, and that's joining the military, serving our nation. And so we know who you are. When you come home, if you need some help, you can see us. We're the centers of influence in this community. You need a job, we'll help you get a job. You need to get against school, we'll help you do that. You need to do some career planning, we'll help you do that. This is back in 97, 98. And then, of course, Twin Towers, 9/11. And here we'd made this promise to probably 150, at least 100 young men and women from our community, our county. And I had to say to myself, what happens if somebody comes home clobbered that we made that promise to? We need to be prepared. We need to have a plan. And that's what we did. And Sentinels of Freedom really started to help one soldier from our community, Jake Brown, run over by an Abrams tank, wasn't expected to live, came home just really beat up. And so we started never thinking that this would become a national program. And we're still, just for our listeners, Sentinels of Freedom is still very small. And I actually kind of like that because we have such, we have high touch. We're able to spend more time with each individual in our program and react to needs and questions and ideas and everything else. If I had thousands, I don't think it would be as personal as it is. And so I like the spot we're in. Things are changing. Recruiting, military recruiting is having a tough time. That's not any fault other than the military's. Of course, they'll try and blame it on all sorts of things, but it is their fault. They didn't see it coming, and now they have to react. But in the public, kind of, flavor of the month. What is it this month? And what is it this year? They don't have their eyes on the veteran population or the military population as much as they used to because we were at war. And thank God we're not at war, but you and I both know how quickly we can go to war and how quickly our hospitals can fill up again. And, pray to God that doesn't happen, but it's the world we live in. So we depend on young men and women like yourself making the decision to join the military. And it's an excellent opportunity for educating oneself, learning a trade, being around people that are motivated. And it's a place to grow too, even if you just go in for 4 years, but it's also a great career opportunity. I have 2 sons that are career soldiers and one who was in for 6 years. So I've seen it up front and personal. I wish every American could really experience the things I have going to military bases. I was at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, a few months ago, visiting my son, and got to hang out with his unit and went to a PT physical training thing for his command. And I looked around and I went, man, these kids are, they're all kids to me, but they were inspiring, men and women from all over the country, working together, laughing, having fun, on mission, on task. And you just back up and go, where do we get these people? It's an amazing renewable resource that America has, and it's young people who are willing to make that commitment. You were one of them. So now, tell me where you're working now.
So now, Mike, I've taken my services. By the way, I'm still a peer-to-peer mentor on PTSD. That's part of my life. I focus on the individuals that I get to see on a daily basis, and that's really here at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. I am part of a firm called Booz Allen Hamilton. Right. A phenomenal organization that takes pride in servicing the United States government, right? And so I am currently a government contractor. I am a team analyst / planner in deployment operations for the installation at Fort Bliss, Texas, guiding young men and women, E5s, E6, E7s, lieutenants, captains, majors, on the deployment process. And so what a unique situation that I have found myself in, or have been blessed to be a part of by my higher power, God, to be put back in the environment. I never thought I would be back in a military organization. And here I am, right? Never did I think about that I was going to be doing this a year and a half ago. Yeah. And now going to 10 months servicing the U.S. Army at Fort Bliss, Texas, and guiding them through the deployment process. Sure. But even with that, I get to meet a lot of different people who are struggling, like I was. It's normal to struggle in the military. The military is not an easy career, right? Basic training was never easy. Right. Serving your country is never easy. Waking up every day, Monday through Friday, to do physical fitness, at 5 a.m. in the morning to be at formation, standing tall and looking good, just to do physical fitness at 6:30, and then finishing up at 7:30 in the morning. You got to go shower, change, and be back at formation work call at 09, and go through that on a day in and day out basis. I get to inspire. I get to pick up these men and women and say, it's not how you start sometimes that matters. It's how you finish.
Yeah.
And so
your energy level comes through very strong. It always has since the first time I talked to you. And we believed in you, and you, I always say this isn't a charity, it's an investment. You are a good investment. Just look at what you're doing in your community, and we're really proud of you. I can't wait to get down there and see you again. The things you described there for a second, privates, sergeants, captains, majors, you left out colonels and generals. Well, I know why, because they know everything, right? They don't need any help, right? but the military became the cornerstone of the foundation of your life, and of course your family is another cornerstone, and maybe the final cornerstone is what you're doing now. Maybe not the final cornerstone, but it's still that foundation that you built. You did it yourself. Of course, a lot of good people around you, especially your wife and kids and family. And it's the American public doesn't really understand the commitment and sacrifice. I would say generally they don't know what the military does. They know a little about the military, but they don't know much. And it's not for everybody. It's a select group of really amazing young people and leaders. So I really applaud you, and it's just been wonderful talking to you. And I wish you all the best in your future. And I just think of all the people that you have touched and helped, and all the people you in the future, just think of how that 6 degrees of separation, they call it, how that little wave ripple goes across the pond and touches so many others with your lessons in life, and being willing to share them with others is, that takes, not a lot of people can do that. And you're pretty much an expert in that field, subject matter expert, I would say. So thank you again, Mike Gonzalez, United States Army, CW3. It's been great to have you on this morning, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future. To all those out there listening, we hope you've enjoyed this chat with Mike and I, and I hope you'll share it with your friends and family, your colleagues, because this is important stuff. We need to hear, the American public needs to hear what goes on after somebody is injured in the military, and the potential that they have, and what they're doing today, and their successes. This is the real American story that we hope to portray in these podcasts. So thank you again. This is Mike Conklin, Sentinels of Freedom, and Mike Gonzalez, United States Army, CW3, signing off. Okay, good stuff, Mike.
Great. That was awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Out of all the things I've done at Sentinels, this has been a really amazing journey, these podcasts. And it happened totally, Mike, between you and me, I am a believer. I'm not overtly religious. I don't go to church every Sunday. My dad was a minister. I went to Sunday school twice on Sunday most of my life because he was, in the pulpit. But I am a deep believer in what I call the hand of God. There's things that I cannot explain that have happened to help our organization. People that have come to me saying, "What's this about? I want to talk to you." Other circumstances, meeting you, meeting the other Sentinels, and being able to help a little bit. But you had the metal in you already, just needed to hammer it out a little bit and hone it but it was always in you. We just walked at your side a little bit and believed in you. And I think that's one of the things that one of our Sentinels said. He said, the best thing that ever happened to me was Sentinels of Freedom and the people there believing in me, believing that I had a future and showing me kind of a path. And so you did very well in that, and very proud of you. Please say hello to John Arroyo when you see him. I see him on Facebook all the time, and I got to get back down there and see you guys. We've got some things going on in San Antonio that I'll make you aware of once we kind of get it a little more put together. But I think it's going to be good for that area. Not so much on the treatment side, but more on career enhancement and things like that.
Right.
So, we got some issues in recruiting. That's a big thing with the Army right now. I just talked to the Sergeant Major of the Army last Friday, had a Zoom call with him, and he had been in contact with me, and I gave him some ideas, and we're going to follow up on that. But basically, it's what we really need to do is get the military experience and opportunity back in the front of local communities, which the Army has done a terrible job at. The academia, high school teachers view military service as a competitor, not as an opportunity. In other words, if a kid goes into the Army instead of going to college, they think they've failed, and they want to be very protective of their rice bowl. And so they aren't helping a lot, especially out in our area in California. And so, for young people such as yourself, it's a great way to break out of different situations, family life or poverty, wanting to get an education, wanting to learn a trade, all that stuff. It's all there, but you have to apply yourself. There's no free lunch in this world, even for a wounded veteran. There's no free lunch. And so when you're offered an opportunity, you got to really analyze it and say, okay, I'm going to take full advantage of this opportunity, and I'm going to do everything I can to come out the other side. We want you back home. Our communities want you back home. We want you back home whole, and we want you back home better than when you left. And because you're an asset to our communities. Look at the things you do in our community, or your community. Not everybody does those things. In fact, very few. So it's definitely needed. I know you'll continue to do this, and so stay healthy and strong, and stay in touch.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you for having me. You were the first point of contact that I was able to have when I was, when I heard about the Centennials of Freedom through a gentleman called Williams, and always been a blessing to me in many ways. God sent, and thank you, Mike, and the entire Centennials of Freedom organization for believing in me, for being part of that team that I talked about. You are part of that team, a big part of that team, and I will always be grateful. If there's anything that I can ever do for you, advocate for you, please do not hesitate. I'm on standby to serve.
Yeah, well, you're worth it. You're worth the investment. You've proved that. But what you're doing right now is the biggest help you can give us, and it's not repayment. It's more than that. It's what we expect of our Sentinels, is to do good things in their communities, not just their careers and their families and everything else, but to reach out, help that kid that's coming out that might need a little help. But be real. You got to be real about it. And again, no free lunch for anybody. So, all right, good stuff. I'll let you know when I'm heading down there. There is a guy who I want to introduce you to down there. He's a professor at one of the universities down in San Antonio, Mike McDowell. I don't know if you know him, but he's a part of this new program we're hoping to build, really for the next the genesis of veteran service organizations. There's too many of them out there, crossing swords, crossing paths, duplicating services. it's a fog for somebody to get help. But once you dial in and you find that one group or that one person who can show you the path, you're on your way. I mean, there's no stopping you. So been a real pleasure talking to you this morning.
Thank you, Mike. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
All right. God bless you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.